And you did a short film about, is it an art thief?
So what happened with that was I wrote, my friend and I wrote a feature about a heist, an art heist that's real. And we wrote it and we shopped it to two people, and I hadn't directed a feature yet. So it was, they said basically you can do two things with this script. You can sell it on spec, and that was on the table. You know, it has a Ocean's 11 tone to it, but it's a little bit darker than that. It's kind of like
American Animals? Sorry.
No, it's a little bit like, there's a grooviness to American Gangster with Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe, which is a period film in the 70s, but about Frank Lucas, who sold heroin in New York. But there's a grooviness to that movie where you're like, oh, there's like a sense of humor to it, but it's also serious about what they're talking about. And there's a grooviness to like Ocean's 11, and there's a great sense of humor, but then it doesn't have that serious component, right? It never gets really serious ever. And so the film we were working on had a tone of that. But anyway, to make a long story long, we wrote the script and they said, hey, you can sell it on spec or you could do something with it. And I had time between commercials, or between a music video and a commercial. And I said, hey, let's just shoot some scenes from it. So it's sort of billed as a short film, and it's not. It's a short film has to have a beginning, middle, and end. A short film, whether it's 5 minutes or 11 minutes, has to have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It has to, right? And this doesn't. This kind of like picks up sort of in the beginning of Act 2, and then it ends, and you meet the thief under circumstances which are very, very odd, where he has to prove a painting is real or not, and his life is in the balance. And then he is recruited after doing that to steal the real one, because he proves that the one they're looking at's a fake. And so we shot this kind of like you take a script and you're like, hey, we're going to shoot page 7 through 12, right? So we did, and after that experience, I got another gig came up for me, and then after I shot that, I went to New Zealand, and so we kind of put that all on ice. And also we repolished that script, the guy who we co-wrote it, and he did a big polish of the script, and it's probably like a $20 million film. So it's on ice, because it's like, hey man, that opportunity is not knocking at my door right now, and I'm not going to undershoot it. Like I'm not going to bring the scope of the script down to like $3 or $4 million, because it needs to be what it is, right? So now you have to have that discipline of, did we spend all this time on this script and is it ever going to get made, or was that just really exciting during that period of our lives? So it's been on the shelf for like 6 years. Yeah. That's the danger of when you put something on IMDb. They're like, oh my gosh, this must have been like an official thing. And you're like, no, dude, it was a great project and we had a good time doing it. And it's a very, very interesting story we're passionate about. So when people do ask us about it, which is infrequent, you guys totally did your R&D here. When people do ask us about it, it's something where we're like, you want to drop kind of like a Easter egg or a breadcrumb and be like, yeah, hey, look for that in 5 years, or whenever we get $20 million to shoot it. So anyway, there are other priorities between now and then.
Sure.
So yeah.
Just a few meetings away.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But you used a lot of the people, or some of the people, in that art thief heist movie to then co-write and then be in ECCO. Is that right? Which is your feature? Few people?
So the lead actor in the Portrait of an Art Thief's name is Lathrop Walker, and he's the leading actor in ECCO. But he and I have been friends for 16 years. We went to acting school together. He's an extremely talented actor. We lived together when I lived in LA. So it's sort of that Ben Affleck, Matt Damon thing. We co-wrote some stuff. We wrote stuff individually. So what happened with ECCO was he and I co-wrote the story, sort of a treatment that developed over some time. And I took the treatment, and it needed to have a script development session that was really my voice as a writer-director. But we both built that story, and we've written several treatments together of films that are coming up. But my relationship right now with the way I need to work is I need to write the script because the way I'm going to write it is the way I'm going to shoot it, right? And what I mean by that is, to give you a couple of examples, like if you read the script to Prisoners, or if you read the script to Silence of the Lambs, or Seven, or Blade Runner 2049, you're reading the work of a screenwriter's interpretation of that story and the visuals and the scope of that story. But no directors contributed to that script. So if you read that script, you're going to read it just like a script. Now, if you read anything that Christopher Nolan writes, or Michael Mann, or James Cameron, you're reading a script from a writer-director. And the tone and the style of the writing is going to be very different, because those writer-directors are writing it because that's the way they're going to see it. And that's the way it's going to be interpreted. And those documents, without being cold about it, those documents are very, very different. I have a friend who writes for Marvel, and he has read everything I've ever written. And he's like, "You're going to shoot this, dude. You're totally going to shoot this." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I am." And he's like, "Yeah, because you write," he's like, "you write it like there are no other ways for me to interpret the visual language of this film." And so my relationship with Lathrop is we have a co-writing relationship in the story phase of things that's highly organized and highly developed. And we've tried to co-write scripts together. We've tried once or twice. And the way of working didn't work for me personally. It had nothing to do with his creative energy or his genius as a storyteller. He's very brilliant, very layered storyteller. It had to do with the voice of the script. It had to do with the way I wanted everything in the dialogue to sound, or the way I wanted to interpret the scene description of presenting to the reader the way I want the film to be. And so we did co-write the story to ECCO. And I've known for a long time that I wanted to cast him as a leading man in my first film. I trust him implicitly. It's the same, vice versa. We've worked together on short films, as you know. We've worked together on commercials. We've worked together on music videos. We worked together on a very, very intense action music video that was kind of like Narc and Traffic together. And he was a very interesting character. He's a classically trained actor. So when we talk about character development, we're talking like two actors are talking to each other, right? It's not top down. Like sometimes I'll be on a set and you'll watch a director be like, "Oh, I think you should be nicer. Just be nicer." And an actor's like, "I don't know what the hell that means." You know? So he and I have this relationship that we have this incredible shorthand, director to actor, and we're best friends. So it's just this brotherhood thing. And when people see ECCO, they see what Michael Lathrop's character goes through in the film. And that's a tall ask if that guy was a movie star. For a movie star or an A-list actor to go through that with a first-time director would be a super tall ask. But that's not what I thought about when I cast him. When I wrote Michael in the script, I wrote it for him. He was going to do it. So the other aspect of your question was other people I worked with on Art Thief, Helena Grace Donald. Interestingly enough, when I went to, they have these, you know what they are, and these acting master classes, right? Right. Mm-hmm. So there's these showcases where actors come from all over the world to Hollywood or LA, and they work with a acting teacher. And there are some that are great, and then there are some that are like gurus. Without mentioning the ones I've gone to, because those are my opinions, I've gone to a few that are fantastic, and I've gone to a few that were not a good use of time. And I went to one that was fantastic, and I watched, I went with a casting director who said, and this is years ago, this is before we did Art Thief, we were casting for something else. And she said, "Hey, I want you to take a look at some people." And I said, "All right." And I watched probably 14 scenes. And out of those, so it's 14 scenes times 2 actors, out of like 30 actors or whatever, 28. She just blew me away. And when she was like 20, like 19 or 20, from London, And I said, hey, let's talk to her. And I was right about to. We had just pulled those pages from Art Thief. We're like, hey man, we're gonna give this a go. And there's a character who's the daughter of a powerful billionaire art collector, and she collects black market art, and she doesn't really care how it is acquired. She's a character that when we wrote it, she was like in her mid-30s, and she was, we were always imagining like Cate Blanchett. We were always imagining a powerhouse who could just, with one word or look, could just hook you. And I told Helena about the character. I said, I'd like you to read with Lathrop. Lathrop plays the art thief. And I said, I really need you to convey that level of gravitas and power. And she's threatening him for most of the film. And that's a very tall ask. And she just killed it. And I said, okay, great. So she was in it and she was fantastic. Her and Lathrop had a lot of great chemistry. And then we worked on one other small project together. We tested for something for one of the studios. And then she went off and did a couple movies. And I went to New Zealand. And then when I came back from New Zealand, we were casting for ECCO. And I called her and I said, hey, I wrote this role and I thought of you for it. And you don't need to audition, but here's the scoop, and I told her about it. And right away, it was very wise decision. And again, their chemistry in ECCO is very, very dense, and it's fragile. There's magnetism between them that can only come from really enjoying the scene work with someone else. You have people who don't give you any juice if it's not their coverage, right? And they are actors who are absolutely present with each other, and so that comes across in ECCO big time. But only those two actors, yeah.